Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Question Block. And last week's question was, what are your favorite beta or pre-release versions of video games? And overall, that has been a topic that I've always been interested in, because I think it's really interesting to see the beta or alpha versions of certain games, like in development. I just think it's a pretty interesting concept overall, since a lot of games start out very different from the final version. So it's kind of fun to look at some of the things that were removed or some of the things that were different about the pre-release versions of certain games. So yeah, in this video I will be discussing the responses to last week's question. So Jeremy Gaming 22 said, Luigi's Mansion beta always fascinated me ever since I was a kid for how much different it looks from the final game. Yeah, the Luigi's Mansion beta, especially from Space World 2000, looks really interesting since there's a lot of differences in terms of like the character designs and the way the game was kind of presented and everything. I know it kind of has that infamous depressed Luigi clip that everyone talks about with the Luigi's Mansion beta, but a lot of those old ghost designs look pretty cool, and I really like those older designs and everything like that from both Space World 2000 and E3 2001. But yeah, there's also some differences in terms of like the UI and different things. It's just, in Luigi's design in general looked a lot different. I know Luigi's design in the final game still used the Nintendo 64-esque design, even though it was a GameCube game. I still feel like there were some substantial changes between Space World 2000 and then E3 2001 and then the final game. And yeah, it's just pretty interesting overall, and it's very fascinating to look at the development of this game. So, Masked Mastermind said, I really like the pre-alpha and alpha 1 versions of Hello Neighbor. They're way better than the later versions and even the final version of the game and its sequel, in my opinion. I've never played Hello Neighbor before, but from what I've seen of it, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I actually did see a video, I forgot what YouTuber it was from, but I saw a video about the development of the game a while ago. And yeah, those early versions of the game looked much more interesting, and I feel like the final version of the game and, like the later versions and everything, looked like they were adding a lot of unnecessary things onto the game that kind of bogged it down. So I kind of like the concepts that were in the older versions of the game. I feel like it really kind of, showed what the concept of Hello Neighbor could be, and I feel like a lot of those modern indie horror stream bait games kind of fall into the trap of adding like a lot of unnecessary content and unnecessary features that kind of bog down the game and different things. But yeah, the older versions of the game definitely look more interesting. Presence Content said, gotta go with Super Mario 64. There's just so much stuff that was changed. It's almost like if someone tried to recreate the game from memory. Yeah, Mario 64, I feel like that's a classic example of like a beta, alpha, or pre-release version of a game looking different from the final version or having like a early version of the game. And it's so interesting. Like, I mean, there's even been, like fan recreations of it. There's, like, countless fan recreations. There's been creepypastas about it, of course, because it's the internet, and icebergs, and just countless things about the beta of Super Mario 64. And that's partially due to the fact that Mario 64 is such a popular game. Like, it's Mario 64, like, it goes without saying, it's like a very revolutionary game. Like, for not only Mario, but like video games in general, like with 3D controls and graphics and everything. So, with this game's beta, it's really interesting how they were kind of experimenting with a lot of ideas with how to translate the Mario formula into 3D. So there's a lot of very uncanny things in the beta and alpha versions of this game due to how different it looks from the final game and kind of how dreamlike it looks. Honestly, I feel like that's the best way to describe it. I feel like it's so popular because it almost kind of has this like very nostalgic, liminal, uncanny, dreamlike feeling to it. It's not just the image quality. I know the image quality definitely kind of makes it more uncanny and liminal. But I feel like it's also due to those old character designs that they use. Like it's a weird combination of like 3D character designs and 2D. Not in the sense of how it looks today, but kind of like more of a 2D cartoon-like texture put onto a 3D model. It looks so interesting. And then there's like those like enemies that were removed, like Modos, which were like a Bob-omb like enemy, and then like also the early designs for a lot of enemies as well. It's just such an interesting beta to look at. It's just like, especially looking at the very early versions of the game from 1995, like from Shoshinkai 1995, and the various like footage and pre-release screenshots. Like the UI looked a lot different, and like the sound effects were different. It's just, there's something about this beta that makes it special, and I know it's kind of oversaturated in terms of like coverage, people talking about it and making recreations of it and everything, but I feel like there's a reason for that. It's just so intriguing how this game originally looked, and I feel like that's kind of part of Super Mario 64 in general. And yeah, finally, there's the most important aspect of Super Mario 64's beta: Luigi! L is real. When they found that out in 2020, that was definitely one of the highlights of the pre-release information of Super Mario 64. Definitely pretty important. And Luigi was actually used throughout most of Mario 64's development, which is pretty interesting. But yeah. So Dark Kirby said, New Super Mario Bros. Me, which then became You, was one of my favorites. That is a really interesting beta. Like, or like almost like alpha, basically, of more so alpha than a beta, but for New Super Mario Bros. U, it's just really interesting because it really seems like an upscaled version of New Super Mario Bros. Wii from the looks of it. Like the backgrounds and a lot of the enemies and various assets definitely seem to be reused from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. But from some of the videos I've seen of it, it seems like they've actually upscaled or completely reworked a lot of these sprites and models into HD, which is pretty interesting. Because, I mean, a lot of these directly seem to be based on Wii's and everything. So, yeah, it's just kind of interesting how similar it looked to Wii. And I mean, I feel like that kind of definitely goes into that argument that New Super Mario Bros. U is too similar to Wii. And I mean, while it does have some minor changes, I feel like it is too iterative of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Even though it's a fine game, I just feel like they really should have done more to set it apart. And I feel like New Super Mario Bros. Me is definitely an example of how this game was basically derived from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. So yeah, and it is pretty disappointing that they didn't let you play as a Mii throughout New Super Mario Bros. U. I know there were like some side modes in New Super Mario Bros. U that let you play as the Mii, but it would have been cool if you could play as your Mii throughout the entire game. Let's hope that a new 2D Mario game, hopefully an original 2D Mario game, lets you play as a Mii. But yeah, so Piranha Lettuce said Sticker Star, and that is actually my favorite. Even though Paper Mario Sticker Star, the game itself, is one of my least favorite games of all time, the beta is actually very interesting. If you've been familiar with my channel for a while now, you know that it's definitely something special for me, something that I've been looking into for quite a while. And if you haven't heard of the story behind the beta for Paper Mario Sticker Star before, and also the alpha for it as well, like the pre-release history of it, basically it started off as a game that was definitely kind of a successor to Paper Mario 64 and Thousand Year Door through both gameplay and art style, since it had a lot of the classic character designs through like the Goombas, Pokies, and Koopas, and different things like that, and also had original characters as well, like the King Monty Mole and different things like that, and then it also had new enemies as well, like the Wiggler and Womp, and there was also partners as well. It showed one partner in the screenshots, but there were also, in the files, it was kind of implied to have more than one partner, but the partner that they showed was a Chain Chomp partner, which is pretty interesting, kind of reminds me of Link's Awakening a little bit with that one time where Link had the Chain Chomp with him and everything. But yeah, I think the beta for Sticker Star is just fascinating, just due to how it started out. And then also some other things, like the locations, like there was like a forest area that definitely resembles Paper Mario 64 a lot, and even has a little bit of New Super Mario Bros. DS influence in it, but kind of in a way where it's not iterative or copying it, it's more so just kind of taking aspects of that style, kind of like how Paper Mario 64 takes some aspects of Yoshi's Island style. But overall, I just really like the style of E3 2010. It's just really interesting. And then there's also like a ton of other unused content as well. Like there was the Mander enemy that was found in a screenshot in the files of the game, as well as like a page that unlocks a new sticker page that has basically the silhouette of the head of a Mander boss called King Mander, which is pretty interesting. And then there was also a bone variant called Hone Mander. At least in the files, Bowser actually has like talking animations. There's like a lot of unused animations in the game. It's just fascinating. There's so much to look into here, and if you want to learn more about this beta, I'll put a link to the Discord server in the description, because unfortunately, we still haven't found the E3 2010 trailer yet. We have the audio for it, but we don't have the actual video itself. So yeah, if you want to join the search for it, I'll put the Discord server in the description. It's just a fascinating pre-release and development history to look into. So yeah. So, Trashman said Minecraft beta, and that is another beta that, and also alpha as well, that I've been pretty interested in. Like, for a while now, honestly, I would say that's probably the first development history, or I guess beta and alpha history that I've been kind of interested in. Like, even before I was interested in the Sticker Star development history, I was interested in the development history of Minecraft, because it's easily accessible, and you can actually play the older versions of the game since it's on PC, and Minecraft has most of the versions of the game archived. I know there's a few lost versions, but most of the versions of the game are playable and everything, so most of it's preserved, and it's just very interesting overall how it evolved, like from Cave Game back in May 2009, and just slowly added different features throughout the course of a few years. And like even after like the full game was released and everything. Like, it just, over the years, they've just been adding a lot to the game. So it's interesting to see how Minecraft evolved over time. And even though now the updates are kind of lackluster, I'd say after like 1.8 in my opinion. Well, I would say the Nether update and maybe Caves and Cliffs was pretty interesting. But other than that, I feel like the updates in Minecraft don't really hit the same as they did back in the early 2010s, but Minecraft, even nowadays, is still an excellent game. Just one of my favorite games of all time, despite some of the flaws with modern updates and everything. But it definitely had a pretty interesting development history throughout its pre-classic, classic, alpha and beta versions of the game. So it's just pretty interesting overall. So Multi-Fandom Fangirl said either Super Paper Mario Sticker Star Beta, or Kirby GCN. There's probably more. So yeah, Super Paper Mario was definitely interesting since that started off as a GameCube game. It kind of makes sense why they kind of made it so different from 64 and Thousand Year Door, because it was kind of meant to be not a spin-off. I wouldn't call it a spin-off due to how long it is and how many similarities it has in the story to the previous Paper Mario games, because it still is an in-depth adventure. I would say it's kind of a I would still say it's a main game, but on the GameCube, I feel like they were trying to have another Paper Mario game that was kind of set apart from Thousand Year Door. So it was originally derived from the Bowser gameplay segments from Thousand Year Door, because in that game they had like different segments in between chapters where you could play as Bowser in a 2D area, and it really felt like the precursor of Super Paper Mario. So it kind of made sense why they were developing it for the GameCube at first, but it definitely makes sense why they carried it over to the Wii as well, because I feel like the way the game is structured, it's much more marketable to casual audiences. I mean, all Paper Mario games really are, because I mean they're really easy to get into. Like even the ones that are like RPG centric, like 64 and Thousand Year Door. Arguably, I'd say that those are even more beginner friendly than Sticker Star and Color Splash, 'cause those games are pretty clunky and hard to get into, despite being very kid friendly and very casual friendly from the looks of them. I would argue that the older Paper Mario games are more easy for casuals to get into. But that's a discussion for another day. With Super Paper Mario, I would feel, out of all games in the series, I would say that's probably the most accessible to casual players, due to the fact that it's in 2D, and the controls are a bit easier to learn for some people, so kind of makes sense why that was moved over to the Wii. But it's interesting to see some of the unused sprites and unused characters and enemies in the game, since there were a lot of different enemies, like Shy Guys, and, well, at least Shy Guys as actual enemies. I know they kind of appeared in, like, the stylish move thing, but, like, as actual enemies, but also, like, Fly Guys, Stilt Guys, and then also, like, the Wiggler design, which actually differed from the E3 2010 design for Sticker Star, and then Monty Moles, various other enemies as well, like also other enemies and characters from Thousand Year Door, like the partners from 64 and Thousand Year Door, which kind of later appeared on the catch cards in the game. So yeah, Super Paper Mario is definitely an interesting beta, and Kirby GCN is also interesting as well, since it actually had 3 different iterations before Return to Dreamland happened. Like, the original version is probably my personal favorite, due to how it looks. Like, it has the classic GameCube-esque style to it, kind of similar to Sakurai's games on the GameCube, like Air Ride and Melee. Even though Sakurai probably didn't have that much involvement in Kirby GCN, only really the very early stages of it, because he did know about the project and everything. He probably wasn't involved with it post 2004, so yeah, it does still have that general Kirby GameCube style to it that Air Ride had, that general GameCube Y2K aesthetic to it that I thought was pretty cool. Kind of it was very early 2000s-esque. And I feel like that a lot of that early 2000s-esque character to it and personality to it was kind of carried over to Return to Dreamland a little bit. Because basically, the base of the original version of Kirby GCN was definitely carried into Return to Dreamland on the Wii. And then there were also the other versions of Kirby GCN, like the 3D one that was kind of in between the GameCube and the Wii when they were developing that. That must have been around 2006 when they were developing that, like, as a rough estimate. And then Kirby Wii as well, which was like the final canceled game in the iterations of Kirby GCN. So in that, Kirby Wii had like kind of a cel-shaded, cartoon-esque style that was kind of carried into Return to Dreamland Deluxe on the Switch. So it was kind of cool to see that style brought back in that remake. So yeah, pretty interesting overall. So CypherJax said the original Mario Maker, because there was a bunch of things about the game that were either cut, downgraded, or improved. Also, the art director just looked more off, or the art direction just looked more off than I thought it'd be. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I don't really think the art direction looks off. I think it just looks a lot different, and they were just going for a much different style at the time, but I think it's pretty interesting. Like, I remember back when it was revealed at E3 2014, and the style was significantly different. At least with like the UI design and like the actual design of the game. Like the only two styles that they showed off were New Super Mario Bros. U and Super Mario Bros. It was pretty surreal seeing New Super Mario Bros. U at the time at E3 2014, since that game was still fairly new, which is definitely what helped get me really interested in this game from the start. But I really like the aesthetic of the E3 2014 demo and beta and everything, because it kind of has that skeuomorphic style that like the Wii had, also older versions of iOS, like Windows 7, Windows Vista, that kind of almost Frutiger Arrow-esque style, like at least in the Super Mario Bros. Style. They kind of transitioned over to like the flat aesthetic in the final game, but the original version kind of like looked more akin to like 2000s and early 2010s design. So yeah, I really like that more skeuomorphic style with like depth and everything in the Super Mario Bros. Style specifically. I know it's not accurate to Super Mario Bros., but I still think it looks kind of cool. It would be cool, like, in the future, if, like, they kind of brought back that style as, like, a skin to use, or, like, a separate game style. I don't know, that's unlikely. Maybe a fan game could kind of bring back that style, but I think it looks pretty cool overall. And then there was also, like, the unused costumes as well. There was, like, a Tetris piece, and I think there was also, like a Windows logo, which is pretty interesting. I mean, I wonder if they were trying to do like a promotion for Microsoft, but that didn't end up working out, since Nintendo never usually like competes with Microsoft, and it's weird because this was before they were actually kind of working together. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I'm really sad about the Windows logo, because if you've seen the first video on my channel, the Windows logo history, you'd know that I have an interest for the Windows logos, but yeah. So anyways, those were the responses to last week's question. Next week's question is, what is your favorite hub world in a video game? Let me know down in the comments. So anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server if you want to. Goodbye.